All right. So welcome, Patreon members. Thank you so much for your support. Creating these videos is such a pleasure for me because, well, it's how I get to offer the transmissions of the information that keeps coming through me, and more keeps coming through me. And it always leads me to the right, always, because I trust it. It leads me to the right place in A Course in Miracles to find the message that is most relevant for all of us in every now moment that I get to offer these transmissions. And today is Wednesday, September the 14th, 2022. We are deep in the middle of the month of September. And as you can see, so much is happening. There is so much that is being revealed, so much that is still being suppressed by the mainstream media, by the mainstream, characters, being suppressed because it's part of the truth that sets us free, because it's bringing to the surface that which was dark. And the reason it's dark is because it's low frequency, and it was kept secret. It was kept hidden because it's evil, it's treacherous, it is totally, completely anti-love. It is the opposite to what love is, and being the opposite to what love is has kept humanity in a state of fear that appears to be normal, that makes fear real. And in that state of just like an anxious fear that humanity has been conditioned to live with, we have been too afraid to peer into the darkness. And the few that have done that, they have been labeled conspiracy theories. They have been killed. Those who stood up for exposing the truth that sets us free, Martin Luther King Jr., Gandhi, Jesus, so many amazing warriors, and many today. If you go through the list in the last couple of years, the last couple of decades, you're going to find a lot of people whose deaths came because they were speaking truth. They were revealing inconvenient truths for those who operate at the low frequency of consciousness, meaning the egos rule their mind. Because they trust their mind, they trust the ego, it has wreaked havoc upon the planet. Now, we don't need to judge that. It is part of the journey. It is part of what's possible on this 3D planet, where free will is the number one rule that we all have to abide by. Everybody has free will. However, we are in the midst of ascension. We are done with the 3D planet. As I like to say, we're done with third grade. It is time to move to another grade. It is time to take the lessons, apply them, and move forward. Those who are paying attention to what is happening in the world, because they are grounded in the truth of God inside, they have come to trust God. We have built a solid foundation on rock, on solid rock, which means we don't need to defend our position because it's solid. Doesn't matter if anybody believes it or not. You're grounded in truth. You're not going anywhere. And no matter how much they want to throw tomatoes or yell or whatever, or argue, it does not matter, because you're not going to leave that solidity that you have found inside, because you have placed your faith in God. You are trusting what God is teaching, what God is saying, what God is activating in your heart. And whether humanity likes it or not, we are part of something bigger. In meaning, we're part of a galaxy, we're part of a planet, we're part of a solar system, we're part of a galaxy that is in a multiverse. So we are part of something bigger, and it is having its way because it is time for graduation. It is time for humanity to move to the next grade. Now, the planet of free will, if you don't want to move forward, you can stay where you're at. And the way you stay where you're at is you hold on to your fears as if they're real. You trust the ego. You trust external sources. You trust that you need to give up your power. You trust what you're told because you believe that those beings outside of you that have power keep you safe. If you are trusting the external world, you are operating in fear. And guess what? You haven't learned the lesson that your might, your power, your certainty, your clarity comes from God, which means you need to learn to trust the voice within. But if you're trusting the voice outside, this is what it looks like. You think the government is going to save you. You think one person's going to rescue you. You think your money is going to provide your security. You believe the medical system, big pharma, that is all money driven, completely about greed and not grace at all, is going to keep you healthy. You believe the education system is going to teach you everything you need to know. And you believe that the religious systems have told you the truth about God. If that is you, or part of that, even if you only still believe one of those things, your trust is in the outer world. The information that comes from the outside is what you believe. If you have switched and you trust God, it's because you've come into your inner world. You have let go of the illusions, the lies, the programming, the conditioning that has been layered on your mind by the outer world, including not believing necessarily everything your parents taught you, or the church taught you, or the government tells you, or your doctor tells you. You seek second opinions. You seek all kinds of things that allow you to move beyond that which is happening in the world right now. So much has to be done to correct what is the misinformation in our mind. So lesson 47 is what we're going to focus on today. Absolutely powerful, powerful lesson. And this particular lesson, let me get my little marker. This particular lesson is at the beginning of 365 lessons. So it's foundational to the building of our house on rock, on solid rock. And if you're going to build a solid foundation based on the truth that is true always, not only is Jesus giving it to us in A Course in Miracles, but it's the truth that God wants us to understand so that we can each access our Christ consciousness and evolve into the graduation, to literally graduate and ascend to the next level that we are here to experience on this incarnation. And that next level is nothing more than operating with truth. Because when we're all operating with truth, you don't have secrets. There's no need for secrets. There's no need for darkness. Everything becomes transparent. Can you imagine a transparent government? Can you imagine a transparent education system? Can you imagine a transparent big pharma, when all corporations have to be totally transparent, where we can track everything and anything everybody does? You see, we're all concerned about privacy because we have secrets. We don't want people to know what we're doing in private. But once you become awake, you don't need privacy. You don't care if everybody knows what's in your bank account. You don't have nothing to hide. You don't care if everybody knows where you've come, what you've done. If everything is transparent, you don't mind, because you know we're all operating at the same level of transparency, and you trust everybody. And what's interesting is when you know everybody is telling the truth, you don't need to track them. It's boring. It's not interesting. But when you have lies, when you have secrets, you want to track the people in order to find out if they have found your secrets, but you don't want the people to know yours. So when we are operating with the ego, and we've got government officials and we've got big pharma officials that don't want their documents to be seen, that they don't want what they've got going on exposed, why? But yet they're the ones who want more transparency on our part. You know, big pharma, The medical system, they want to see everything you're doing. They even want to give you medical passports. They want to check to see what you've done. Otherwise, you can't move forward. They're wanting to tie that with the government to see if you are following what the dictates of a government that's supposed to be doing what you want them to do, not the people doing what the government wants us to do. So everything is backwards in the world of the ego because we have been conditioned to believe external sources. They know more than we do, is what we've been told. Well, when you come to connect with God inside, not only do you find out that you know just as much as everybody else when it comes to the stuff of the planet, but you also come to know the same thing as everybody else can discover about God. When you come to know God inside, you actually come to really know God. You got to give up what you've been taught about God. When you come inside and find out that you have a powerful immune system, you got to give up what you've been taught about the immune system by the medical systems that financially benefit from it. And when you do something as simple as follow the money, you understand why the world is in the space that it's in. You understand why people have lost their lives for exposing that which is greed-based. And it's been happening for thousands of years. 2,000 years ago, Jesus said, you can only have one master. It's either going to be God or money. And money and power go hand in hand. So if you're worshiping money, and I can assure you, if you look at these politicians that get rich out of a career in government, which is not supposed to be a career. It's meant to be a time of service. If you look at the money that they make, if you look at the way that they give themselves permission to do insider trading, but yet everybody else that does that gets in trouble. Ask Martha Stewart. She got in trouble for doing insider trading, but Nancy Pelosi doesn't. You've got to begin to look at, why do we have double standards? Why is it okay for this group to get in trouble, but not for this group? Well, when you begin to place your trust in God, you begin to realize, I want equality. Everything should be the same for everybody, and I want it enforced. And you become part of the process that is shifting humanity from 3D to 4D. 4D consciousness is just stepping more clearly onto the path of listening to God inside, accepting that we're all equal. God created all of us equal, endowed each and every one of us with the same inalienable rights to experience eternal life, pursue freedom and liberty, and to let happiness be our purpose. Once we are all participating in protecting that as the truth for all of us, which, by the way, it's what our United States Constitution, our Declaration of Independence, our documents state is the role of the government. The government's role is to ensure that the people are represented in such a way that our equality, our life, the sanctity of life, that our liberties, our freedoms, including freedom of speech, and including freedom to protect ourselves from tyrannical governments, and pursue happiness however we want to. That's the government's job, is to ensure that our equality is maintained and everybody is treated the same. That is what the Constitution, that is what this United States is founded on. Our house, our American house, is built on a solid foundation, trusting the truth that was channeled by our founding fathers, that all men and women are created equal. So as we are shifting from the third dimension to the fourth dimension, those who are okay with the hierarchies and the haves and the have-nots, and that, oh, as long as you send me $600 as my, my gift from the government, I don't care if you're sending $60 billion to Ukraine. I don't even need to look into it. I'm not even going to check to see if that is valid, or is it money laundering? Is it helping your children? Is it helping your cousin? Is it helping your people? As long as I get my $600, I'm okay. Because we have been conditioned into settling for so little that we're going to have a very rude awakening. And speaking of rude awakening, please watch on my YouTube channel a series that I just started. I've uploaded the second message in what I title the Rude Awakening. I just want to prepare people. Humanity's about to have a very rude awakening because all of those secrets are being exposed, and pretty soon you cannot deny that you've been lied to. But you still don't have to believe it because you're trusting the ego. Also on YouTube, I've uploaded an entire series. It's a course that I did at the Spiritual Living Center a few years ago, titled An Introduction to A Course in Miracles. I spent 6 evenings, 2 hours every evening, explaining what the Course in Miracles is all about, answering questions, tying things together. So it's 12 hours worth of video, totally free because it's on my YouTube channel. And then I am uploading the 365 Course in Miracles lessons that I've read. And then I explain what they're about. And I speak of how I put it into practice in my own life. And if I can allow the Course in Miracles to wake me up because I've learned to trust God and God's truth, then if I can do it, anybody can. So if you want to tap into that, go to my YouTube channel. Also, for my Patreon members, I'm going to put those links inside of Patreon, so it might make it a little easier for you to find it. But if you like what you're getting from these messages, please tell others about this and help me grow this Patreon community. You know, it's more fun when we have more members that participate in building something that elevates the consciousness of humanity. So, lesson 47, foundational lesson. The title of it, God is the strength in which I trust. Not God is the strength in which I would like to trust. God is a strength. Hey, maybe I'll trust it. No, God is the strength in which I trust. It is an affirmation of where I place my trust because I'm placing it in that which is the strength, the only source of strength, especially here in a world that is so volatile and is so transient because different people think that they are stronger than others and operate in hierarchies. All right, paragraph 1. If you are trusting in your own strength, you have every reason to be apprehensive, anxious, and fearful. Let me repeat this, and I'm going to add a word in here. If you are trusting in your own strength, the egos, you have every reason to be apprehensive, anxious, and fearful. What can you predict or control? What is there in you that can be counted on? What would give you the ability to be aware of all the facets, keyword all the facets of any problem and to resolve them in such a way that only good can come of it? Isn't that interesting? We've got leaders that have the power. We've given them the power. Many cases, they've taken the power, and they still can't do things that are for the greater good of all. They can't. Typically, it's for the greater good of a small number, and that number that normally is part of the greater good is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And now you can pretty much find those people as members of the WEF, World Economic Forum, that's run by Klaus Schwab. You have to ask yourself, if we are trusting God, if our house is built on solid ground, we don't think that we know it all for everybody else. We go to God for the answers, and God's answers see everything and ensures that everything is for the greater good of all. How is it that we continue to bow down to people who keep making what is good for such a smaller and smaller and smaller group? It used to be the 1%. Now it's, the half of 1%. It's actually the 1% of the 1%. It's a very small group of people who, because of all the money and power that they have given themselves permission to continue to rise as the source of strength in this planet, because the majority of us do not have a solid relationship with God. If we had a solid relationship with God, we could smell right through the shenanigans, but we don't see the shenanigans because our mind is so filled with nonsense that we even argue for our own limitations. We argue for what is not true. We defend those who are keeping us oppressed. But this is the planet of free will. So you can do anything you want. You can absolutely be oppressed if you want to. You can do that. It's okay. And nobody's going to get in trouble with God, because God only does what's for the greater good of all. God doesn't punish anybody. However, God has set up a system, and this is a system that everybody has to participate in. And it is a system of total and complete equality. When you learn your lessons, you get to graduate to a new dimension, because you can only go to that dimension if your consciousness is vibrating at the frequency of love, at the frequency of truth. Then you literally get to operate with those who really want to have a world that is transparent, because they no longer have secrets to hide. The free will that we have is to block God's truth and play in the game of lies, play in the game of the egos, the separation, the hierarchies, the monarchies, the cheating, the lying, and all of that, and somehow getting away with it. We have free will to do that. But everybody has the ability to ascend in consciousness and return to the truth that we came from. But to return to the truth in the 3D consciousness, while we believe that we are humans, we must make the choice to ascend. We must make the choice to trust God. We must pull our power from outside and bring it back inside. That's where we had free will to come in and say, no, thank you, God. I'm going to listen to the ego. And we created the insane world of the ego. We have to take our power back, which means we got to face that which is dark and say, no more. You don't scare me, and I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to spend the rest of my incarnation in the game of karma, needing to learn through pain. I can see clearly now, and I don't need pain to show me that you're in pain. You're in pain, you're hurting, so I'm going to forgive you. You don't know what you're doing. I'm going to shift my attention to God, because I built my house on a solid foundation. God, what would you have me do? Now use me, God. I want to do your will in co-creating this new earth. So you have to make a decision. If you trust the strength of God, that's the only path you're going to follow. So back to this paragraph number 1. When you trust God, you know God can see everything. God is all-knowing. A politician only knows what a politician knows. The governor of Georgia only knows what's going on in Georgia. The president of the US, who is one party, only knows what that party wants him to know. So you've got to understand that no one human can see the big picture. But you can come inside and intuitively get the answers that you need to navigate whatever it is that you need to know in this moment, because you can tap into the strength of God that is in you. And once you trust only that strength, you can't be deceived by the external forces of people who think they know it all when they really don't. All right. So once we recognize that there is a power that knows everything, we are absolutely clear, because it becomes obvious that it is always working for the greater good of all, period, no exceptions. So you can't be operating in sides. You can't be with this party versus that party, this group versus that group, this religion versus that religion, and think that this one's right, that one's wrong, or this one's right, that one's wrong. You need to open up to the recognition that this is a planet of free will. Everybody's right. Everybody's right where they are. However, we have the ability to question what is and get the correct answer so we can continue our trek on the path of ascension. We don't need to judge the people who are using their free will to wreak a havoc upon the planet and themselves and create more karma. We don't have to spend time judging that. We were there, been there, done that. It's the game that we all play. You shift your attention and you lift towards the path of ascension. When you do what God tells you to do, you don't need to judge those who are operating with the ego. You just simply move on. You just move on. That's what's so beautiful about this, because you have the strength of God in you. You have the conviction to know you don't have to defend what you know is true. Everybody gets to believe whatever they want to believe. Sentence number 5 says, what is there in you that gives you the recognition of the right solution and the guarantee that it will be accomplished? Wow. When you begin to listen to God inside, it's what gives you the perfect solution for you. It's what gives you the absolute guarantee that it is the right thing for you, because you will feel it in your body. Body never lies. You will feel the peace because you know you're following exactly what is necessary for you. Paragraph 2, of yourself, you can do none of these things. How can you guarantee anything for the greater good of all? Can you seriously think that you know how to make decisions that are going to positively impact 8 billion people? Can you make decisions that impact positively your family? I know as a mom of 3 children, and when I was married, a husband, I couldn't always make a decision that was going to impact everybody positively all the time. Sometimes my decisions would benefit this child over this child. If this one wanted to go to the mountains and this one wanted to go to the beach and I want to go to the beach, well, guess what? This one was not going to go to the mountains. I made a lot of decisions that did not positively impact everybody. And that's okay. But when I became aware that I could only see what little I could see, and most of it was lies, indoctrination, then I had to humble myself and begin to ask God to show me the truth. And boy, oh boy, I can tell you that the more I drop into that trust in God's way, the more that my decisions are always for the greater good of all. I don't need to know the house. I just know that when I operate from transparency, from truth, from kindness, from compassion, from forgiveness, it benefits everybody. Nobody is affected by my kindness in a negative way. Nobody is affected in a negative way when I speak truth, by not being a liar anymore. When I operate from my ego, I told lies. I was always protecting me. I was always saying whatever needed to be said to manipulate the situation so that I would look good. That included lots of lies. We call them white lies. Doesn't matter if they're white or pink or, rainbow colored lies. Lies are lies are lies because they are blocks to the truth. Of yourself, you can do none of these things. You cannot guarantee anything. You cannot have the right solutions. You cannot do things for the greater good of all. To believe that you can is to put your trust where trust is unwarranted, and to justify fear, anxiety, depression, anger, and sorrow. That's the world the ego has made. That's the world where people make a decision for everybody. The liberals make a decision for everybody. Well, if the conservatives don't want that, guess what? You're going to have fear. You're going to have anxiety. You're going to have depression. You're going to have anger. You're going to have sorrow. Clearly, that's the ego. That's not a house built on solid rock. It's not built on the solid foundation of everybody listening to God inside, where it would always be for the greater good of all. You see, when we're listening to God, God gives us the guidance that has us seek compromise, collaboration, cooperation. And to be able to do that, you can't think you know it all. You can't think you're right and be curious and open at the same time. So there has to be a humbleness that is necessary, that we cultivate, that is very difficult to cultivate when the education system has trained us into believing that we're right about what we've been told. And if you question being right, then there's something wrong with you. And we don't want to ever be wrong, because it feels like there's really something wrong with us. Not that we don't have the right information, but that there's something wrong with us, like we're faulty, or like we're, leopards that nobody wants to be around because you got it wrong. So much to learn. Who can put his faith in weakness and feel safe? How can you put your faith in the ego and ever think you're really going to be safe? Do you think those who run the show and listen to their ego is their master, really care about your safety? Or do you think they care about your compliance? Now, to them, keeping you compliant is safe for them, but your safety is an inconvenience that they're willing to dole out $600 for, dole out give you permission to get away with a few things if you do not disturb them feeling safe about what they're doing. So if you're not looking and seeing behind the curtain what they're actually doing, and you feel safe with $600, and I'm just using that number because I saw that was the $600 is what what Joe Biden decided to send to the American people recently, while he sends billions of dollars to the Ukraine. Absolutely. I mean, that people don't question that. How is that for the greater good? How is that for the greater good that a handful of people get 60 billion and millions of people get $600? How's that good? It's not equal, so it can't be good. But we have to be willing to question that. But if you're feeling safe because your government gave you $600, you're not going to question, are they doing something that they shouldn't be doing? Because in your fear, in your anxiety, in your depression, in your sorrow, you're not going to go and stand up to them because you're too afraid of losing your $600. Only one who gets angry and allows anger to really activate the energy of revenge, because we have to go through the levels of consciousness. You can't skip revenge. When you're becoming more conscious, revenge looks different. Revenge looks like, I'm going to live my best life. I'm going to live a life aligned with God, and I'm not going to worry about anybody else. I'm not going to worry about what anybody else thinks of me. That's the best revenge. God is my strength in which I trust. That's the best revenge. But until you're at that level of revenge that only blesses everybody, you must activate the level of revenge, go through that part where anger begins to say, why am I only getting 600 and they get 60 billion? I don't like this. I voted for these people. I want something that's more fair. When that anger gets activated and you go, okay, I am going to take them down, there is an alchemical process that's going in your body, going on inside, because you're beginning to rebel against the conditioning, the programming in your neurological pathways. And that anger activates the chemicals that have you say, I'm worthy of more. I'm worthy of a lot more than $600. And that activation of self-worth begins for many of us, the journey of awakening, the journey of looking, well, what else have I been tricked with? And then you begin to pull back the curtain, and my gosh, you go down a rabbit hole. And those of you who've done that, you know that's a deep rabbit hole, and it can take decades to unravel. But today, you don't have to go looking in the rabbit hole. It's what was in the hole is coming out for all of us to see. So these are amazing times. Why? Because God has a plan that we ascend. Those who want, we have the opportunity to ascend. Those who don't want to ascend then are going to work really hard at seeing the truth that is surfacing and saying, I'm not going to believe it, because they have free will and they can stay here and through karma, go through, repeat that grade in that school. This is planet Earth. Now, here's an interesting thing about planet Earth being a school. We don't need to learn a thing. We really don't. In human form, we do. We need to educate the ego so that the ego can ascend in consciousness to the place that we can get curious about things without reaction. So we got to train our ego, train our own mind to question our own beliefs. That's part of the journey. But when you connect to God, this is not a school. You don't need to learn anything. You're here in what should be a playground to have fun and enjoy and express yourself. So all the learnings that we're here to do is because we have blocked truth. So the learning is really an unlearning. It's a removing blocks to truth. Because when you remove the blocks to truth, all you're left with is God inside. When you connect with God inside, all you're going to do is extend the kingdom. Fun, joy, ease, peace for all. So exciting. So exciting. All right. Last sentence in paragraph 2, yet who can put his faith in strength and feel weak? If you put your faith in strength, you will not feel weak. For a while, it took me a couple of years to make that shift where I really trusted the strength of God, and I felt the peace in my heart consistently. It took me, I'm going to say that was a journey of about 15 years. I've been on this journey for 20. So it's really the last 5 years that I have been sitting, resting in the peace that passes all understanding, to the point that just recently I had the final death of my ego. That was the completion, the taking off. The ego doesn't run my life. It barely ever talks because I just don't vibe in that low frequency negative thought. That doesn't enter my mind. I can't sit in judgment of others. I trust everybody is a powerful creator just like I am. So my mind has been trained, and therefore ego mind, blocking truth, lying, it just is hardly ever part of my journey. Doesn't mean that every now and again a disempowering thought doesn't go through my mind, but it's one, and you can see it and go, whoa, I'm not going to believe that, because that's suffering. I'm not going to lower myself into the density and the contraction of suffering, because I don't have to. I am aligned with the strength of God. I can stand with God and see what is true, what is not, and stay there peacefully, not judge it, but keep going on my merry way, doing God's will and connecting with those who are busy co-creating a new earth. That's it. Paragraph number 3 says, God is your safety in every circumstance. Until we totally, completely trust God, we are going to be trusting external sources, wanting them to keep us safe. But here's where you have to ask yourself, in all honesty, if you want to end the game of karma, ask yourself, can a human truly provide safety to you? That's the first question. The next question, you have to ask yourself, what is the cost of another human providing you safety? That's the question that humans don't want to ask. The humans that are listening to the ego don't want to say, oh, it costs me to believe the government keeps me safe. Because then you have to look at the ways you have given your power away. You have to look at the lies. You have to look at the programming. You have to look at that you've been trained into becoming a victim, and you accept it. So to be able to say God is your safety in every circumstance, that can only come from really trusting that you are in the mind of God. That's where we are safe. All of this is made up. This is a playground. This is all energy appearing real. And if you believe with the ego, you create this reality. If you believe with God, you're creating a happy dream. You're creating heaven on earth. So are you going to continue to spend your time looking for safety outside of you where it can't be found? Or are you going to acknowledge this? God is your safety in every circumstance because you have made a decision to shift and live to a higher frequency, to shift and live to a higher consciousness. His voice speaks for him. And of course, if you understand the Course in Miracles, his voice is the Holy Spirit's voice inside. It's your intuitive voice. His voice speaks for him in all situations and in every aspect of all situations, telling you exactly what to do to call upon his strength and his protection. If you don't trust that you are given exactly what to do, notice it doesn't say sort of kind of what to do. It says exactly what to do. Once you come to trust God and you trust God's strength and you put all your allegiance on God as your only master, the things of the world are going to crumble. They're not necessary. You don't need to keep playing with them. So while they're crumbling, let them. The monarchy is crumbling, let it. Those are all made up illusions, part of the game of separation. The government breaks down, the money systems break down, the big pharma goes down, let it. Stay here, grounded in your truth, knowing that's just the end of a grade that you are graduating from. Why would you be upset about something breaking down that does not serve the greater good of all? If it doesn't treat everybody equal, you want it to go down. Why? Because now you can be part of the co-creation of that which does support the systems, the new organizations, the new structures that will have at their core service to humanity, because there's an understanding in the greater good of all serves all of us. That's what keeps us at peace. That's what keeps us financially doing well. It keeps the money circulating. It gives everybody opportunities. That is what you want to say. That's what I want. So don't cry over the crumbling of what's happening. And you won't cry over the crumbling if you know the truth of who you are and you know the truth that this is all in the mind of God. And if it's all in the mind of God, we are dreaming this. It's like this is a dream, like we dream at night. That's what we are doing. This is a nighttime kind of dream that we need to wake up in the dream. So we stop suffering by believing lies and start contributing to what is in the greater good of all. If you're not contributing to the greater good of all, you don't really fully understand how magnificent and powerful and valuable you are to the co-creation of a new earth. So if you're still trying to hold on to the old and protect what's there, you don't really understand what you're being called to do. Spend some time questioning your fears, questioning your doubts, questioning your anxiety, because you're just giving power to the ego. Nothing wrong with that. Planet of free will, you can do that if you want to. But why would you do that when you're being given the kingdom of heaven right here? Abundance, peace, well-being, equality, fun, joy, ease. Why wouldn't you just absolutely unplug and go, I want more of that? Well, we don't do that because we don't truly believe and trust that God is our strength. That's it. Ooh, I am blessed. All right. So the next sentence, paragraph 3, sentence 3, there are no exceptions because God has no exceptions. People with double standards make exceptions. That's not God, that's ego. God does not make exceptions. Why? Because God has no exceptions, treats all of us exactly the same, because he created each and every one of us in its image exactly the same. And the voice which speaks for him thinks as he does. So that when you hear intuition, Holy Spirit in you is always talking to you exactly as God speaks. Paragraph 4, today we will try to reach past your own weakness to the source of real strength. Are you ready to reach past your own weakness to the source of real strength? Are you ready to question your beliefs? Are you ready to acknowledge that you don't know it all? Are you ready to be humbled? That was not easy. Believe me when I say those were the most difficult 5 years of my life was when I was shifting from ego to God. And I had to make that shift while I was in the middle of my son's 4-year drug adventure and going through a divorce, a marriage, and then soon thereafter, a divorce from this man that I adored. I had to trust God in both cases. All right, letting go of the husband, letting go of the security, the safety that the husband provides, letting go of the status, the trips, all of the beautiful things that came with that marriage, worldly things that came with that marriage. I had to let go of my fears and my anxiety and my sorrow that I was so worried I was going to lose my son. I had to let go of that and begin to trust God. And God was guiding me to do things that are not of this world. Like, don't be afraid of your son dying, because if he dies, he doesn't really die. He's eternal. What? His body's not here. He's dead. And God's saying, but he doesn't have a body. He's free. And I'm going, what? It took me quite a while to shift my thinking, to accept that we're all made of energy, to accept that it wasn't my husband providing. All the provisions are from God, but my husband had his ego attempting to control things. And in that control, I was feeling the tightness, my safety was being compromised because my husband, who thought he provided, who thought the abundance was his, because he didn't think greater good for all. He didn't think equality. Once it was his, then he was pulling the safety from me, because if I didn't do what he wanted me to do, then he could scare the crap out of me by taking things away. And when I saw, oh my God, I'm thinking he keeps me safe. God, please forgive me for not trusting you. Then I had to go through those couple of years to shift my mindset and totally, completely do things in this world that were not of this world. It was not of this world as a wife going through a divorce to say to my husband, I don't want anything from you. My attorney thought I was crazy. What? He said, you must not be Jewish. Jewish women would never let their husbands get away with keeping everything. I said, no, I'm not Jewish, but I'm also not of this world. And I'm not going to let my ego run this divorce. I don't want anything from him, because nothing came from him. Everything is of God's. I want to access abundance that comes from God, because that's where it actually comes from. I needed to acknowledge that my beliefs had me thinking Ken was a source of safety when he wasn't. I needed to expand my mind and pull out of that one tiny little person thinking that they had power over me, claim my power and go to, oh my gosh, I'm not a body, I am free. And in that expanded state of consciousness, connecting with God and doing God's will has more than taken care of me, more than provided. Nothing, nobody in this world has safety for any of us, because the house that the ego has built has been built on sand, very shaky, very unstable. That's why things come and things go. But what God wants us to know is that if we put our trust in God's strength, we will be on solid ground, no matter what comes and goes in this world. So here, let me read this paragraph for it bears reading before we go into the instructions for this particular lesson. So today, we will try to reach past your own weakness to the source of real strength. And they say try because it's not an easy thing to give up thinking the government is in charge of you or going to keep you safe. It's so ingrained. It's hard to believe that the medical system could actually want to keep you sick, because that's how they make their money. You know, you got to put two and two together. And to put two and two together, you need to move through your fear and get to the place that you want to see. You really want to see the truth, no matter how painful it might be. To discover that your own government's been lying to you, to discover that your church's been lying to you, to discover that your parents gave you lies, forgive them all. They didn't know what they were doing. It was passed down, hand-me-down lies for millennia. But when does the buck stop? Well, it stops here. When you decide no longer to believe what's been told to you because you see the results. It's a chaotic world. Why would you want to keep thinking that the two-party system is going to make things any better? It's not. You got to pull back, put on your patriot warrior hat, and see that we need major corrections. It is time that we abolish this institution that is absolutely there for themselves. That's a hard pill to swallow, that you've been voting for people who didn't care about you. Yeah. But don't beat yourself up. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps and say, God, forgive me. I was blind, but now I want to see, and I want to see things differently. Show me the way. And the voice for God in you, your intuition, will talk to you. Always has been, but you have to make a decision to listen to it. Absolutely beautiful, amazing things here. All right, so today we will try to reach past your own weakness to the source of real strength. 4 5-minute practice periods are necessary today. So 4 times throughout the day for 5 minutes. And longer and more frequent ones are urged if you will be willing to make the time. So close your eyes and begin, as usual, by repeating the idea for the day. God is the strength in which I trust. Then spend a minute or two searching for situations in your life which you have invested with fear, dismissing each one by telling yourself, God is the strength in which I trust. I'm afraid the government's not going to protect me. God is the strength in which I trust. I'm afraid I'm not going to have enough money to pay the bills. God is the strength in which I trust. I'm afraid I might get sick. God is the strength in which I trust. I'm afraid my friends don't like me anymore. God is the strength in which I trust. We repeat this over and over and over again until we create new neurological pathways that allows for God being the strength in which I trust, our new truth, the new foundation of where our strength comes from. And little by little, you cross the bridge from your safety coming from here, your strength coming from outside, to know it comes from the inside and it comes from God. It takes a while, but it is absolutely doable. Not only is it doable, it is necessary for you to experience true safety. Excuse me. It is imperative that you come to the source of truth, or you're going to have a very rude awakening, because what you thought was true is crumbling. Yes, like the Berlin Wall fell and the East and the West connected. Well, the governments that are based on greed, that are based on lies, that are based on selfishness, that are based on corruption are crumbling. It's a good thing. So humanity can unite. And those who are going to unite, that have graduated, are uniting in the strength of God, where we will do everything for the greater good of all, period. The other side, if you don't want to come to this side, well, graduation is happening. For them, you get to repeat, because you have free will, you get to repeat the karmic cycle, because you still feel that listening to your ego and learning through pain is more what you prefer to do. But nobody's going to judge you. God doesn't judge you. Those who move on in graduation to the 4th dimension, they don't judge those who are left behind, because we understand that it's a choice. It's a choice, because you rule your mind. And if you choose to see the outer world as your savior, nobody can make you change your mind except for you. So why would we judge you? Because you're using your mind how you want to use it, just as we're using our mind how we want to use it. this is what's so amazing about this. Those who are moving on to the fourth dimension, they have their eye on the fifth, the sixth, all the amazing things that are coming. They don't have time to dilly-dally with anybody who wants to stay stuck inside of the 3D world. I don't spend time trying to convince anybody. Number one, that's not respectful to the powerful souls that they are wanting to have that experience. And number two, I'm moving in the other direction. I don't have time. I don't have time to go back and pull, and I'm moving in that direction because that's where God is leading me. I'm following Christ. He is the way to the next dimension. He's done it before me, so I'm following him. No time to judge. Just as he had no time to judge the people who were crucifying him, it's like, okay, let's drop the body. I'm on to my next experience. I'm not incarnating anymore. I'm just going to stay non-physical. But he's helping all of us. Why? Because he's invested in the greater good of all. So he has given us A Course in Miracles so that we have the truth today that he gave us 2,000 years ago. But now we have it uncensored, unfiltered by other people's opinions, by a Bible committee that put together the Bible. And he now has the ability to give us the exact steps that we follow. And here's an exercise with those perfect steps. Bring into mind the things that keep you from knowing that your strength is with God by seeing that your strength is with ego. See how simple that is? And if you give your strength to ego, well, you're going to suffer because ego is of the world that is temporary. If you want the strength of God, then you want to put your confidence, your certainty, your allegiance in the world that is permanent, eternal, forever. All right, paragraph 5. Now try to slip past all concerns related to your own sense of inadequacy. Remember, we closed our eyes and we brought into our consciousness any memories, any thoughts that we had invested with fear. Then we claim God is the strength in which I trust. Now we're not gonna dilly-dally with my inadequacy. I'm not good enough to make more money. I'm not good enough to get new friends. I'm not good enough to, create my retirement. Move past those inadequacies because we're moving to the place of connecting with the truth so we can trust God, so we can practice the instant manifestation, so we can practice the calling to us through law of attraction, what we want, when we want it. To have that come to you, you cannot continue to think fear-based lack thoughts. Those are two opposing frequencies. One pulls you down, one takes you up. You've got to pick. Which way are you going? When you get on an elevator, you can't go both up and down at the same time. You push the button, higher frequency, 12th floor. You push the button, lower frequency, 1st floor. You cannot go to both at the same time. Now, you can drive yourself crazy going up and down. You can stay up the elevator if you want to, but that's not efficient. So, Course in Miracles is about efficiency. We're training our mind to efficiently think in one direction so we can move and ascend to that experience, so we can have a happy dream, experience the kingdom of heaven here and now. Sentence number 2. It is obvious that any situation that causes you concern is associated with feelings of inadequacy, for otherwise you would believe that you could deal with the situation successfully. If you're afraid to speak your mind, you have feelings of inadequacy. You don't think you're good enough. If you are afraid to rock the boat, you're dealing with feelings of inadequacy. That's because we've been trained to think that we are not powerful. That's why we have to allow ourselves to rely on God's strength so we can get our power from God. Because if God created us powerful, who are you to say you're not powerful if God created you powerful? You're so powerful that you use your power to say, oh my God, I'm afraid that they're going to be mad at me. Okay, own it. You're using your power to believe inadequacies. You could just as easily say, you know what? Of my own, I can do nothing, but with God, I can do everything. So if you can give yourself full power to say what you want to say and not be afraid, then say God will say it through you until such time that you and God are one. And then it doesn't matter that comes out of your, you take credit or God gets credit, because it's all the same thing. It'll be loving, it'll be wonderful, it'll be for the greater good of all, no matter what. See how that works? All right, goes on to say, it is not by trusting yourself that you will gain confidence, but the strength of God in you is successful in all things. See, we don't want to trust ourselves because our idea of self is ego. We want to trust God inside of us. And when you find your worth, when you trust your adequacy, you will say what you feel like saying because you won't let the ego sphere block it. And every time you block saying what you want to say, all you're doing is manipulating people into believing a lie that everybody's inadequate because nobody can handle the truth. That's all that the ego is doing with us. It's saying all of us are stupid and need to operate at low frequency. I'm not going to tell you the truth because you can't handle the truth. Nothing but a whole bunch of stupid idiots that your ego's telling you is what everybody is. Isn't that crazy? I operated as a stupid idiot for a long time. Paragraph 6, the recognition of your own frailty is a necessary step in the correction of your errors, but it is hardly a sufficient one in giving you the confidence which you need and to which you are entitled. Listen to that. The recognition of your own frailty is a necessary step for the correction of your errors. This is where most people will not go there. Most people will not recognize their darkness. They will not recognize their fears. They will not look at their fears because they're doing spiritual bypassing. But it is hardly sufficient that we just recognize our darkness and gain the confidence that we need, which we're entitled to that confidence, by the way. You must also gain an awareness that confidence in your real strength is fully justified in every respect and in all circumstances. Let me say that again. You must, it says it right in there, Course in Miracles. We are in paragraph number 6. We are in sentence number 2. This is lesson number 47. You must gain an awareness that confidence in your real strength is fully justified in every aspect and in all circumstances. It doesn't matter who you're talking to. If you're in front of a judge, if you're in front of your child, if you're in front of your sister, if you're in front of your partner, or in front of your president, you are a child of God, powerful beyond measure. You ask God what you say, what you do, and you will be given exactly what you need to say. That is always going to be for the greater good of all. When you trust that voice inside, because you have come in, truly come in, removed obstacles to hearing that voice, and then you do whatever it takes to hear that voice, you will gain the real strength of God, and it will increase your confidence. Without a doubt. I didn't do it overnight. I was just as scared as everybody else. Heck, I stayed married for a couple extra years, longer than I should have, because I was scared to get divorced. What kind of a prison sentence is that? Crazy. I had to gain awareness that I had a strength within me that came from God, who could see the bigger picture for me, who knew what was in the best interest for everybody. For me not to stay in a relationship where we were not operating in integrity. That liberated everybody. Sure, kids had an issue with that. Dad, husband, whatever, had issues with that. I had issues with that. But eventually it was liberation for everybody, because God knew it was for the greater good of all, instead of pretending something that was not healthy. And this pretending to appease other people is to say you don't have the power to find your own peace. this pretending to coddle people, to do things for others, is a absolute egoic arrogance that other people can't find their own way. That I have to lose my way for you to be okay. That's arrogance of our ego and ignorance of the truth. Paragraph number 7. In the latter phase of the practice period, try to reach down into your mind to a place of real safety. Go to the time when you felt most at peace. Go to the place when you felt totally safe. Was it at 10? Was it at 18? Was it at 43? Was it when you had this job? Go to that place. Find that you that felt that peace. You will recognize that you have reached it if you feel a sense of deep peace, however briefly. Let go all the trivial things that churn and bubble on the surface of your mind and reach down and below them to the kingdom of heaven. There is a place in you where there is perfect peace. Oh my goodness, this is so powerful. Let me say it again. There is a place in you where there is perfect peace. There is a place in you where nothing is impossible. We have to get to that place where nothing is impossible. And that's only with God. That's the only place where you're going to be able to experience that which is not impossible. There is a place in you where the strength of God abides. It's there. We have to find it. And when we find it, well, that's the peace that sets us free. Paragraph number 8. During the day, repeat the idea often. Use it as your answer to any disturbance. Every thought of fear, anxiety, discomfort, all you need do is to say, God is the strength in which I trust, period. And then find a place of peace that you have had. Go there and say, oh, there's the kingdom of heaven within me. I'm gonna tap into that me that is peaceful. Well, that's the me that in that moment had surrendered to God and was doing God's will. That's why you had a wonderful time at that time. You were doing God's will and you were enjoying yourself. You got to get back to doing God's will so that you can experience the peace that passes all understanding. So during the day, repeat the idea often. Use it as your answer to any disturbance. Remember that peace is your right because you are giving your trust to the strength of God. Remember that peace is your right because you are giving your trust to the strength of God. Today, the world has a big test before them. Are we going to give our allegiance to God, rely on God's strength? Is that what we're going to trust is our source of strength? Or are we going to continue to trust in the outside world? One goes up, one goes down. When you hit that button to pick which one you're going to go to at that imaginary elevator, you are in total control. You have free will. Are you going to graduate and go on to build the kingdom of heaven on earth? Or are you going to continue to stay in hell on earth, where suffering, hierarchies, discrepancies, double standards, liars and cheaters and victims and bullies are part of the game? Nobody's going to judge you if you want that. No judgment whatsoever. But why would you want to repeat that when you've got the strength of God to go on to co-create something that's way more fun and way easier? This is what we need to brace ourselves for, because right now, September, October 2022, maybe November, by the end of this year, for sure, we're talking only a few months, a lot of what has been egoic, kept in the darkness, is surfacing so that we who have the eyes to see and the ears to hear can make a choice. Are we going to go up or are we going to stay here? And the consequences are the result of the choice. You go up and co-create. God is your strength with others who see things the same way. Heaven on earth, collaboration, co-creation. free energy, sustainable communities, better living situations, honest, transparent governments, education systems that honor God inside each one of us, religious institutions that will speak to the truth that God's inside of us, not on a cloud. Do you want that? Then you cannot continue to live in fear. You cannot continue to believe the lies in your head. You cannot continue to believe in lack. You must take a step back, assess these two choices. And when you assess them with awareness, consciously, I can assure you, you're not going to choose this, not for long. But when you make the choice with awareness to move to the higher frequency, when you fall, and you will, because it's repetitive, it's programmed in your mind, just forgive yourself, get back up and ride the elevator up, shift and lift to the place where you rely on God's strength. Humble yourself and rely on God's strength. For a while, you may have to try it while you're shaking in your boots because you're so afraid. What are people going to think if I speak my voice? And then all of a sudden, you listen to God and God speaks through you. And you say what you need to say. And the world may not like it, but you feel peace. It's going to feel good. And that peace is addictive. And you'll do it again and again and again. Before you know it, you have shifted out of that low frequency. And you'll never deceive yourself again with lies or deceive others. It's the same thing. Because what you do to you, you do to others. If you speak truth and you believe that they can handle it, it's because you're a truthful being, knowing you can handle anything because God is your strength. The choice is upon us. The time is now. We have to make a decision because pretty soon, graduation's going to be over and you're going to find yourself on this side or this side. Not because God put you there, but because you made the choice based on what you believe is your source of strength. If fear and protecting yourself and thinking you're weak or better than others is what you feel comfortable with, then that's what you think is your strength. If on the other hand, you don't mind being uncomfortable because you have decided you're going to learn to do things differently and you're going to let God be your source of strength, you will find yourself on the other side. Nobody's punishing anybody. This is strictly free will. But we cannot blame God if we choose to listen to the ego, because the consequences of listening to the ego are suffering. Plain and simple. If you're okay suffering, even if it's silently, fear of what people think of you, then just acknowledge, do yourself a big favor and don't lie to yourself. Acknowledge, I'd rather suffer a little bit. Then that's okay. You need more time in that grade. Take all the time that you need. 1 incarnation, 2 more incarnations. It's okay. God knows you are safe in God's mind and you're pure non-physical consciousness. So God's not concerned. But God wants you to have a different experience if you choose to have a different experience. Because the consequence of following God's truth is your life will be fun and easy. Your life will be joyful. Your life will be collaborative and creative. And it may not start right now, but when you choose that, more people are going to come together, and that's what we are participating in. All right, that's today's transmission. I loved it. Oh my gosh, thank you, God, for using this body vessel to bring such a beautiful message. So, Miss Dondra, just you and I here today, sister. How was that message for you? If you are still where you might be able to unmute yourself, maybe you can't. So maybe we won't hear from you. That's okay. As long as everybody that listens to this receives what's yours to receive. That's all that matters. We don't need to get feedback. All right, family. Love you dearly. And I so look forward to seeing you next week, next Wednesday. And take care, everybody. Bye-bye.